This is Richard Zaric with Belgrade Greed, and he is from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Hello.
Belgrade Greed is a 6-part black and white crime-based miniseries that takes place in Belgrade. It's about Zoran, an innocent young man who gets caught between rival gangs and by the police for a crime that he didn't commit. What happens in this story is he travels to Belgrade looking for work, and along the way he meets up with a femme fatale. The woman, the daughter of a powerful crime boss, is brutally and suddenly murdered. He's left holding the gun, but he doesn't remember a thing. This occurs at the end of issue number 1 and serves as the hook and the catalyst for this series as it triggers a gang war. The tone of this series is obviously very noir, perhaps a cross between The Godfather and Chinatown with a bit of Sin City and The Fugitive thrown in for good measure. Thematically, as the title suggests, it's about greed, for money, for power, for physical attraction. The art is by Ryan Sargent, clean, crisp styles that match the tone of the story. The story itself obviously takes place in Belgrade shortly after the 1999 NATO bombings. The country is in shambles and infrastructure is ruined. However, international aid money has been provided to help rebuild that infrastructure. Companies vying for those contracts need to come up with enough bribe money with which to bribe elected officials. But of course, that's difficult to do during a crime war. With a strong emphasis on plot and character development, this story features crooked cops, double crosses, and a gang war, as Zoran must clear his name from a murder that he really didn't commit.
I feel like the most original aspect of this pitch is where it's set and the time that it's set, and that kind of interests me.
That's exactly why I did that. It's something that's a little bit different. It's in Europe, and it's in really the pariah of the world. Not too many people talk about Serbia other than some of the atrocities that have occurred. There's a lot of other dark underbelly things that have taken place there that we can discuss and talk about.
But just because you set a typical story in an interesting place doesn't make it not typical. I mean, the setup for a crime he didn't commit seems like the most kind of cliched setup that you have for any kind of crime story. And I don't see, other than the setting, what distinguishes this. Do you?
No, is there something more that you're not telling us about? Is there twists? Is there reasons for...
Basically what's happening is, see this? The reason he doesn't remember is because the actual murderer is a crooked cop. She has had 2 different affairs. One with a thug from a different gang, because they were both drugged just as they were in this restaurant. The restaurant hadn't opened yet, so they were having some wine. He passes out. Suddenly he's got a gun in his hand, and he doesn't know what's going on. How did this occur?
Why is he framed? What makes him so special that it matters?
Because the cop found a scapegoat. The cop was being blackmailed by her. He was a crooked cop, and so he found an easy alibi.
So he's just like a loser that was an easy target?
The wrong guy in the wrong place, and he's just an average Joe. And what makes this different than movies like The Fugitive and that, and those action movies, is he's a guy that gets beat up. He's the guy that gets thrown around and needs some help from his friends to figure out what's happened.
What portrayal of the city is it?
It's going to be very close. I have relatives that live in former Yugoslavia, in Croatia, and Bosnia, and Serbia. Photo references, all sorts of details such as that, architecture, that sort of thing. I'm going to try to maintain as true to real life as possible.
Because obviously he's passive at the beginning.
Serbia is in shambles. Unemployment is high. He's a university student that rallied for democracy and everything else, but it's not working. He has to go to the big city to find work. So he's just going along the way. She happens to be on the bus and sits beside him, and she uses him as protection from another jilted lover. It's a complex plot and a complex story, but it all interweaves together and comes together at the end.
Well, I feel confident that you know what's going on, but I'm not sure I do all the way. But I kind of like it. Good job.
It's an interesting setting. I think
like
you're good at a good look. I don't know if the setting for the U.S. that setting's kind of difficult for selling it elsewhere.
Well, that's why I like the setting, is because I thought I could make it accessible enough for the U.S. market, but then at the same time, there's European opportunities as well. V for Vendetta is based in London, same kind of thing.
You need to find the MacGuffin. You need to find the special something in the story that twists it around. It twists it around.
It's 2 million euros. The cop...
Find out what it is and make that part of your pitch. because I agree. It doesn't sound like anything we haven't seen a million times, but make it something that we will remember. Find out what that moment is.
That would get me there.
And it's also important for the character to have a journey, not just a physical journey.
Well, he does have the journey because at the end of the story, he's of course proven innocent. He just goes back home. He's had enough with Belgrade. It's too tough for him.
I'm not sure it's enough.
It's not an emotional arc for him, but figure that out, and I think you'll get a lot of interest
It's
in that.
close. It's close.
You've got a good launching point. Now you need to figure out what your story is.
Yeah.
Thank you
Good
very
job.
much.
But thank you. Thank you.